Please watch the latest world news. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister mentions nuclear testing. Mr. Zelensky asks Western officials not to contact Mr. Putin. Why can't Russian missiles be shot down? Making the West worried. French intelligence warns that Iran is about to have more nuclear weapons. Ukraine will receive military aid from 7 European NATO member states. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister mentions nuclear testing. Dear friends. In an interview with TASS news agency on November 30th, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov did not rule out the possibility that Russia will resume nuclear testing in response to the US escalation of the war in Ukraine. Mr. Ryabkov said that the question of whether Russia will resume nuclear testing is still under consideration. He added that the situation in Ukraine was quite complicated, and that Russian officials were constantly examining the issue in all its components and all its aspects. Ryabkov said that the key issue regarding the US escalation was the fact that Russia's position was being ignored by the West. The latest manifestation of which was Washington's permission for Ukraine to use long-range weapons supplied by the West to attack Russian territory. Ryabkov said that Russia has all the necessary means to counter attacks by Ukraine using US weapons. Has large-scale countermeasures to force the West to understand Russia's position and in any case will pass the test of strength. Ryabkov also warned that the consequences of a nuclear war between Russia and the US would be catastrophic. Whether such a war would happen or not, he said, would depend on the actions of the opponent. Mr. Ryabkov stressed that Russia would act in accordance with the new nuclear doctrine. He was concerned that developments on the ground were moving in a direction that would create threats that could force Moscow to trigger a nuclear response. Therefore, he hoped that signals from Moscow would be taken seriously by US officials. Mr. Zelensky asked Western officials not to contact Mr. Putin. In an interview with the British news agency Sky News on November 30th, Mr. Zelensky expressed concern that Mr. Putin's words could undermine unity in the West regarding support for Kiev. If we lose this unity, I am afraid we can lose everything, the Ukrainian leaders stressed. According to Mr. Zelensky, when the Russian president talks about something, some world leaders get scared, start communicating and divide their societies. Then contact other leaders, and divide the unity in Europe. He believes this leads to more pressure from Moscow through actions such as the Oreshnik missile strike or revisions to Russia's nuclear doctrine. The Ukrainian president revealed that he was not surprised when German Chancellor Olaf Scholz contacted the Kremlin leader for the first time in nearly 2 years in mid-November. Mr. Scholz later explained to Mr. Zelensky that he wanted to talk and understand what Mr. Putin is thinking. Mr. Zelensky affirmed that it is impossible to support that because it opens a new page, a Pandora's box of disasters. Meaning that other Western officials will also start direct exchanges contact with the Russian president. There are politicians who want to contact Mr. Putin just because they want to be on the front pages of newspapers and for people to talk about how they can communicate with Mr. Putin, the head of Kiev said. Previously, when commenting on the phone call with the German Chancellor at a press conference in the Kazakh capital Astana on November 28, Mr. Putin said that their dialogue mainly focused on Ukraine. According to the Russian president, both sides stated their views on the issue and both maintained their positions. Mr. Putin noted that it seems strange that Russia still maintains contact with many countries that have very tense relations with it, although he has not directly contacted the leaders of these countries. He believes that they are also ready to resume contact with Moscow and discuss the developments in Ukraine bilaterally, and in the context of the whole of Europe. Why Russia's missiles can't be shot down. Worrying the West. The high-precision Oreshnik missile can strike enemy targets with the destructive power of a nuclear weapon, but without the serious consequences of an atomic explosion. Russian military analyst and editor-in-chief of National Defense magazine Igor Korotchenko told Sputnik. Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin said at a session of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, in Astana that if Russia launched several Oreshnik missiles at once, the power of the attack would be comparable to that of a nuclear weapon. However, Korotchenko stressed that the Oreshnik is not a weapon of mass destruction, as it is highly accurate and not equipped with a nuclear warhead. From the published materials, including videos of Oreshnik strikes on targets in Ukraine, it can be seen that the missile carries 6 warheads, each of which is capable of independently striking a target. The speed at which these warheads enter the atmosphere is so high that when they kinetically strike the target, the plasma cloud, together with the speed of the warhead, creates a force comparable to the explosion of a large meteorite, Korotchenko said. French intelligence warns Iran is on the verge of acquiring more nuclear weapons. Speaking in Paris alongside Richard Moore, head of the British Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, Lerner stressed that Tehran's nuclear program is becoming the biggest concern for Paris and London. Reuters news agency quoted Lerner as saying, "Our intelligence agencies are working closely to address one of the biggest, if not the biggest, threats in the coming months, which is the potential proliferation of nuclear weapons in Iran." Sharing his concerns, Richard Moore said, "Iran's nuclear ambitions continue to threaten us all." In response to the accusations, Iran has repeatedly stated that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only. The supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution of Iran, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, issued a fatwa, religious decree, affirming that the possession, development, and use of nuclear weapons is contrary to Islamic principles and is completely forbidden. In 2015, Iran signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JPOA, demonstrating the peaceful nature of its nuclear program to the international community. However, the US withdrawal from the agreement in May 2018 and the reimposition of sanctions have left the future of the agreement in limbo. In response, Iran began to gradually reduce its commitments under the JPOA through a series of public and pre-announced steps, after the remaining parties failed to ensure the economic benefits Iran was entitled to. Meanwhile, earlier this month, Kamal Karazi, a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei, confirmed that Tehran has the technical capacity to build nuclear weapons. However, he stressed that Iran has no plans to pursue this path, but asserted, if Iran's survival is seriously threatened, we reserve the right to reconsider. On November 28, information in a confidential report from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, to member states said that Iran had announced plans to install more than 6.000 uranium enrichment centrifuges and put many of the existing ones into operation. Ukraine will receive military aid from 7 European NATO member states. The leaders of Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Latvia, Norway, Poland and Sweden have issued a joint statement, in which they have assured that they will increase military aid to Ukraine in the coming months. This was agreed by the leaders after a meeting at the residence of Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. The Swedish government released a joint statement of the meeting on November 27. "We will increase our support to Ukraine in the coming months. We will increase our support, including support for the Ukrainian defense industry, and invest more in ammunition for Ukraine," the joint statement said. The assurances from the heads of government of the 7 European NATO member states come as good news for Ukraine amid the escalating conflict with Russia, and the uncertain future of international aid to Kiev. Many analysts believe that Europe will have to spend more on its own defense and step up its military efforts in Ukraine after US President-elect Donald Trump takes office in January next year. The Nordic and Baltic countries, some of which share a border with Russia, are among the biggest supporters of Ukraine. According to the Kiel Institute, the combined aid from the 7 European NATO members amounts to around €24 billion. In a statement earlier this week, the leaders of the 7 countries also noted that their countries are the largest donors and military aid providers to Ukraine on a per capita basis, and stressed that their support would not wane. The news on Hot News Channel 24 Hours will stop here. If you find the video content interesting, please like, comment and share. You and your friends click subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon in the bottom right corner of the screen to receive notifications of the latest uploaded videos. Thank you.